Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Keener podcast. In today's episode, I sit down with a brilliant, entrepreneurial minded and business minded, marketing minded. This guy is just a brilliant guy all around. Great presenter, great speaker, and just a good guy. Fun to talk to, had good laughs. His name is Andrew Chesnutt. Andrew has been a part of businesses that have been bought and sold for millions of dollars, and he is now the CEO of his own company, Authority Forge. But before we get started with today's show, there's two things I want to share with you guys. As much as I love doing these podcasts virtually, I much rather sit down and talk to somebody one-on-one in person. I can look at them, I can feel the energy that they're giving off, and it's just a better vibe. So if you know anybody that would be interested or that would be a good guest for the podcast show, please get us in contact, put us together, or just relay them my information. I would love to sit down and talk to them. Okay, so I know not everybody has the time to sit down and watch or listen to a 2-hour long podcast. That's why I've created the Kickin' It with Keener podcast newsletter. After every episode, you will get a summarized, shortened version of the guest's biography, a little bit of background about the guest, and some of the key talking points that we mentioned in the podcast. This will help save you time so you don't have to sit and listen or watch the whole podcast if you don't want to, as well as if you're not sure who I'm speaking to or what we're talking about, and you might not be interested, sign up to the newsletter, look at the email, and maybe through that you might find it interesting and then come back and watch and listen to the full episode. And with that, I will continue to do my best to improve my podcasting skills and my interviewing skills to one day bring on bigger guests that you would love to see me collab with. Andrew Chesnutt, man, I appreciate you for being here today.
Hey, man, thank you so much for having me. Always appreciate it. Great way to get a Friday night or Friday afternoon going here, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm in Tennessee and it's so damn hot out there. Like, I'd rather be inside doing this.
I'm in Buffalo, New York. We just finally found out what the sun is. So it just finally started coming out, and we're finally over the 50s at this point. So
yeah,
I'm just happy for anything that's warmish. But yeah, you guys get it much worse than we do, though.
Yeah. Are you originally from New York?
I am from Buffalo, New York. Yep.
Okay.
I always like to tell people other side of the state from New York City. So New York's a big state. I'm about a 7-hour drive from New York City. So I'm probably closer to Toronto than I am to New York City. But yeah, born and raised in this area. We're by Niagara Falls. Love it.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Dang. Up north.
Yes. Yep. So we will be, I'll be moving though later in the year. Decided to move to Salt Lake City. Totally overlooked city. Like totally overlooked city. It is so entrepreneurial. There's a lot of companies that are based out of there. Discover Card is based out of Salt Lake City. A lot of people don't even look at it. They think, oh, it's the Mormons and that's it. And there's so much more there. So much more there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm funny you mentioned that because me and my now wife, we just got married last week, actually.
Oh, nice. Congratulations, man. Awesome.
Thank you, man. Thank you. But we were out there last year around, I think it was May-ish for a tax convention. And just being out there, it was like, I think it was Pueblo,
Provo?
Utah. Yeah, it's
Provo?
like
Yeah.
Provo. There it is. Maybe
you
like
weren't you weren't at Tax Hive, were you?
That's exactly what it was.
Sean Finnegan's a good friend of mine. He owns it. He's one of the founders.
Oh my God. What a small world.
I've known Sean for years. Yep.
Yeah. Tax Hive. And then they had another marketing guy. It was like Syndicate Marketing or something that they did a presentation with.
I don't think that's Devin. I know I've met those guys once or twice.
Devin is with, exactly.
Yep.
I think Devin's the one that put on the thing.
He might have. Yeah. Awesome people. Like really, really good business people. You hooked up with a good crew out there, man.
Yeah, no, it was really eye-opening, especially now that I have like a media marketing business that I started, slowly starting local clients, helping them do like content marketing, social media marketing. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm getting into like getting some money in, like obviously the tax, finding out these different ways to structure your business, and it's just a lot. But it was good to know, and I had a good time, met a lot of cool people.
I can tell you right now, like, and this is something I screwed up when I first started in business, is I didn't get a really good CPA and I didn't keep up with the books. And this was like 8 years ago when I first started out on it. CPAs are like gold. I think the very first person you should ever hire in your business, hands down, is at least a bookkeeper, preferably a CPA. And while they cost a bit of money to get, to have them do your taxes, what they save you is a huge amount in the long run. Because going to be honest, the tax code is totally rigged towards small businesses. There's a ton of things we can do. Augusta rule, when somebody finally explained to me what the Augusta rule is, I'm like, wait. You can do that? You can rent your house out to yourself for 14 days a year, tax-free, like 100% tax-free. And these are things that CPAs can teach you how to do, man. So good for you for knowing that early on. That is it's something that's really important to me, is to make sure that I have that person in there going, how can I work the tax system to my best advantage? Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
On that note, at what stage of your business did you like start to hire a CPA and start looking more at like the accounting stuff?
Day one,
Oh,
hands
really?
down. Yep. And so the CPAs aren't just always about, they aren't always just about making sure your taxes are done. They can help you with corporate structure as well. So do I do an LLC? Can I do an S Corp? Do I do a C Corp? What's the best way to do, there's a lot of tax advantages and disadvantages in how to do that. So they're not just about, let's go in and make sure your taxes are done every year. That's a tax preparer. That's completely different. A CPA is actually like a business partner with you going, okay, here's where your money's going. Here's some of the cool stuff you can do. Like CPA taught me, I bought a car and I'm like, okay, what's the gross weight of that car? And I tried to get it up over 6,000 pounds so I could get a deduction that year on it. It's just fun trying to find ways to work the system for you. And there's a billion of them.
Because that's new to me too. There's so many different little things that when you say rigged for small business, is that like in a positive or is that like negative?
Positive. So there are a lot of deductions for small businesses, like a lot of them. And we can also, if you're an LLC, you can double dip. So I take my standard deduction personally, and I can deduct a good portion of my business expenses off of my taxes as well. So there's just a lot of ways you can really maximize. I don't want to pay Uncle Sam, my unintentional business partner, any more than I absolutely have to. So,
that's right.
And the CPA is the way to do it. So no matter, you'll spend a couple $1,000s a year having them, do taxes for you and kind of advise you throughout the year. But I'll tell you, you will absolutely 100% save that. Just on Augusta rule, I saved $8,000 last year. So
wow,
totally worth it as far as, what I would are totally worth their money, their weight in gold. That's usually the first one. And a lawyer is the second one I would take a look at, just to get everything kind of, make sure you're kind of, all your operating agreements are right and everything is there.
Yeah.
And both the lawyer and the accountant are the first people I would do from day one. Just at least talk to an accountant, at least ask them, what should I do, and have them ready, Yep.
Yeah, it's good because obviously they're not cheap people to work with. So, starting out a business, actually, when we first went out there, I was kind of against when she owns a cleaning company in Michigan.
Yeah.
And it's starting to grow at a pace to where she's obviously starting to look at these different tax benefits and how to properly structure. She was structured at an LLC, and then just after the convention, she switched to an S Corp.
Yep.
And going into it, I don't think it's worth it. The travel, the expense, the hotel, and then, the event was actually free. So that was cool. But after hearing what you said and then what I've learned, it's definitely something that if anybody's listening that has a small business getting into, I was against it at first, but now I'm leaning into the side, as what Andrew said, is like talk to a CPA, talk to a lawyer or an attorney.
So we're never used to paying. I doubt that unless somebody has bought a house, people aren't used to paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a professional. It's not something we do in our daily lives. Like, if I'm going, even working a middle-class job, unless I've been sued and I have to pay a lawyer, or I have child support and I have to pay a lawyer, I'm not used to that. So the way to think about it when you go into business is, how much money is this going to save me? Is this going to make me money? Is this an asset? And so by spending $2,000 on a CPA, if they can save me $17,000 in tax liability, because your tax liability in business is a lot higher, even though the taxes are kind of rigged in our favor with a lot of deductions, we're also at the highest tax bracket. It's something like 40%. So I'm not giving half my money away to the government. I'm going to find every way to get that money down. So for that $2,000 I pay them, if they, significantly can reduce the amount that I am paying in taxes, my unintentional business partner, Uncle Sam, I'm going to that's absolutely 1,000% worth it. And that's one of the mindset shifts that has to happen when you go into business is, how much money is this going to make me? There's some things you have to pay. some things you have to pay, and like taxes. Taxes aren't going to make me any money, although I've found a couple ways to do that. Taxes aren't going to make me a whole lot of money, but what I need to do is I need to I need to do them. I need to pay them so I don't end up in prison. But
Right.
yeah, something like that. But outside of those, how much money is this expense going to make me, and can I make this expense make me money? I mean, on a Go High Level account, I do kind of a side hustle of helping somebody with their Go High Level implementations. And so now I've taken that Go High Level and turned it into something I can make money with. And as an entrepreneur, you're going to find out just whatever way you can to make money, and you'll find a bunch of ways to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Go High Level too. Are you white labeling that to your own thing? Or are you just reselling? Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, I white label it. So I white label it for podcast production, but also kind of as a side hustle, because I don't want to pay a bill unless I have some way of it making money on the other side of it. So,
Right.
when I first started off with Go High Level before the podcast side of my business, I made sure that I had, just at least one client, and she's been a client of mine for years. We were friends, and she just needed a hand getting Go High Level up. So I charged her enough to cover my costs, for the monthly fees, and went on from there. It was something that, helped her out. I made a little money, got my Go High Level subscription covered for the month, and we're good to go. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Andrew's not a tax expert. We're not here to really
Nope.
talk about taxes, but doing a little bit of research on you, man, you seem like you have a lot going on. What does like the day to day look like, and like what kind of businesses are you involved in?
So I'm in the third business building right now. I've built 2 7-figure companies, and I'll tell you, when I started this journey about 8 years ago, I always knew I was an entrepreneur. I was the black sheep of the family. I'm the one that absolutely just like terrified my parents. Like they had no idea what the hell to do with their entrepreneurial black sheep kid at all. They didn't. And my mom was self-employed. She was a clinical neuropsychologist with her own private practice, and still, so she had a better idea than most, but didn't understand the mindset of an entrepreneur and how we work. We're all ADHD. We're all neurodivergent, like either ADHD or autistic. It's just across the board something that I see. We have these race car engines. As far as our brain is concerned, we can think in a million directions, and it's really, it's hard for some people to understand that and how to use that. It's also sometimes hard for us to do it. But as far as like day to day, I am going in a million directions. This is the third company I'm trying to build, and you still have the grind. That's always going to be a part of every company. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Troy, the other day, who's built companies for about 30 years. And it's like that first part, I've heard it referred to as the suck. Another good friend of mine calls it the valley of sorrow. So I'm in that right now with the third company. And the nice part is, I know what this is. I know the process that has to happen. I kind of, I have it down. I'm not perfect at it, but at least it's been there. But running a bootstrapping company is very, very different than running $1 million company. There's different skill sets that are involved with it. But
Can you
for me,
real quick, what do you mean by bootstrapping company?
Just basically, you are chief everything officer right now, and you are just doing whatever the hell you have to do to make it work.
Gotcha.
That's bootstrapping. So
that's like probably many of us, me included, that are listening to this as well. So
yeah. You know what? You will come out the other end of this process a significantly stronger person. I think there's a very few of us that are chosen to be entrepreneurs. And it's a very unique skill set that we have. We have the ability, we're to totally and completely poorly paraphrase Steve Jobs, we're the ones that are crazy enough to change the world. We are.
Love that.
I think there's only 4% of people would even be able to do this. We're very risk tolerant. We can take on risks that most other people wouldn't look at. We're very chaos tolerant. And this is where that ADHD comes in. It makes us really good at these things. Where we think completely differently than anyone else does. We're that I reject your reality. I substitute my own. I'm going to go do this now. That's a special place that entrepreneurs have. And I think it's to those of us or any listeners that are like, hey, I was totally wired differently. I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad and totally understood what the rich dad was.
Oh yeah.
That book changed my life. To those people that really think you're different, you are. And go out, find that superpower that you're doing, find mentors and be able to learn from them. But to kind of get back to the day-to-day stuff, though, it's like, right now it's just build. I spent most of my morning trying to build out a course offering that I want to give, and
Yeah.
low ticket item, get people in. As soon as somebody pulls out the credit card once, they're going to pull it out again. So now I've got a tribe built around it. Same thing that we've kind of washed, rinse, repeated for a few times, but that's how I spent my morning.
Yeah.
you know?
Hey.
And writing funnels. And, oh, God, I don't even know what we did before ChatGPT, man.
Oh, man. Yeah. Thank God.
It sucked.
Do you mind me asking what your first business was? You said that you grew your first business. Obviously, this is your third one.
So I was part of a team that built a company called the Money School. And so our visionary is a guy named Chris Nago, who's become a friend and was a mentor for many, many years. And so the story behind that was he had a show on HGTV called Risky Builders. He was at the time, I think he'd been in the financial world. He was a financial advisor for 10 years at that point. Just trying to do the math. Yeah, it's 10 years. And so after that, he decided he wanted to get into real estate. And I also decided I wanted to get into real estate because for me, real estate was... I looked at everyone that I knew who was in real estate, both sides of the political aisle. I don't care who the hell you were, what you were doing in your life, where you came from, what part of the world. Every rich or wealthy person that I knew had come through real estate, like all of them owned it. And so I'm like, they got to be onto something here. There's got to be something going on here.
Right.
And so I went to a bunch of real estate investor association meetings, trying to see what I could find, trying to learn what I could. All of them were just trying to sell me shit. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. I want to go.
Those events are like, you get there and it's rah, rah, rah. And then at the end, it's like, here's the offer. Here's my pitch.
And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be pitch slapped. It's not my thing. I wanted to go out and learn about other entrepreneurs because, again, I didn't have I didn't have entrepreneurs around me. I didn't have anyone I could go and ask who understood how my brain worked and understood that the way that you're telling me how to do this, to work a job, save up and do it, go to retirement. It's like, no, that's not me. That's not going to work.
Right.
So I found Chris. And I told him at the time I had already been working in the learning industry for about, I think it was 12 years at that point. So I told him I was an instructional designer and I wanted to help him. Now,
sounds nice.
He misheard me and heard structural designer. He had about 5 flips going on. 2 foundations were bad and he needed an engineer to come in and help him. So total misunderstanding. And that ended up getting me breakfast the next morning where I actually explained what I did.
It's like, wrong guy for that job.
So I'm like, no, not going to help you with your foundation. Probably shouldn't help you with your foundation. But the house would fall down if I tried that. But, I have a degree in electrical engineering, not mechanical. It's different.
Lives are at stake.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, not going to happen. But what it did, though, is it got me in the door. So I was able to tell him this is what's going on. He had the show on TV. He was opening up something called Flip Out Academy that was supposed to be the education arm of the show. And so this was 2016. HGTV shows were huge at the time. And so I started to help him there. And we recorded a couple of courses. That's my background is online learning. So it worked out really well. So fast forward a few months, the show aired 4 times, got amazing ratings and was ready to be greenlit, which is the point when the premiere then now becomes a show and is picked up and goes into syndication. Just about ready to be greenlit. Everything was fine. The producers were like, yep, you're golden. We're good. And HGTV was purchased by Discovery, who said no new shows. So they stopped all production on everything.
Wow.
And I can remember the look on Chris's face that day because it was just like a massive repeated kick to the gut. Like we got 4 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars, completely self-funded, had a second episode ready to go and completely fell down in 24 hours. And was one of those moments when it's just like, now what? Now what?
Wow. I can't imagine.
You give yourself a couple days to get over something like that. That's not something you do it immediately. Chris is one of the most resilient people I know. However, it took him about a week and understandably, until his wife one day finally said, look, you've been working with this guy named Brent for a while and it's a specially designed and engineered life insurance product. And he's like, look, why don't you just go work with him? And so the wheels started turning, and he thought, wait, I've been a financial advisor forever. This is a skill set that I can help people with. Let's go make this work. And so what he did is we pivoted to what's called the Money School today. It's still around. And it's teaching people how to manage money, specifically through something called the infinite banking concept. And just like any entrepreneur goes, we all went way, way, way down a bunch of rabbit holes. Got all of this stuff done, and started this thing from scratch, just trying to, learning marketing, learning webinars, learning how to make all of this stuff work. And I ended up writing a presentation for him on how this works. And the fun part about infinite banking is it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So your brain goes into what's called cognitive dissonance. So it's life insurance. And what's the first thing you think about when you think about life insurance? Like, what's the first thing? Death benefit. Yeah. Everyone always thinks about death benefit, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a cash value to it, which is an advance on that. You can take loans on it and make it work. It's been this way for 200 years, but most people didn't know about it. And so what happens is when you explain something that's outside of someone's norm, their brain calls BS and says, nope, wrong. It's part of our defense mechanism. It's cognitive dissonance. So anyway, started that with him, got that up and going, got a 90-minute presentation with him. We got it rehearsed over and over and again, got his story dialed in, started with a webinar that is still 8 years later going on to this day, a Wednesday webinar.
That's impressive.
And started this company. And it revolved around real estate quite a bit. And so that was the first one that we did. And again, there were days when you're like, I'm not 100% sure how I'm getting paid, but we're just going to keep going.
Yeah. I know that feeling.
So that was the very first company. That was Money School. Fast forward to about 4 years ago, we started a platform called Private Money Club, which is like a dating site for borrowers and lenders in real estate. We all were around the real estate world. I'm a licensed realtor. So it's just like, we stuck with what we knew. Yeah. And again, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, wherever you're at, real estate's the number one thing to do as far as building wealth. And so, so we started the Private Money Club, and that is still going. I was in charge of tech for that because that's kind of my background, just kind of steering the ship on it. And it was nice because we had already kind of learned from Money School what to do. It was just a matter of wash, rinse, repeat again. So the first couple of years are always difficult. And we're running 2 big companies at this point. So, and there was only 4 of us running it. So it was kind of one of those things where, we bootstrapped a lot. That's how I got my haircut. So we decided to build a tech platform. And let me tell you, tech platforms are very, 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 very different than anything else on this world. Everyone says, I want an app. No, you don't. Nope. I think, up until last month, they were a couple of $1 million into this, and it's a lot to build to build a platform and to make it right and to do it custom. There's a lot that goes into it. So so that was the second company that we did, and so now I'm on to my company, the Authority Forge. I stepped down from my positions with them and said, okay, we're going to go full time with my stuff. Because I'm an entrepreneur and we're used to jumping off a cliff and building the plane on the way down. That's how we roll.
That's a good one. But those first 2 probably gave you the experience and kind of the harden your heart a little bit to face those challenges. And sometimes if it doesn't work out, I'm sure if that were to happen to you today, it's like you've been through that multiple times already.
Yeah, exactly. And so I know that the formula, it's still hard. There's still a lot of work that goes into it, but I know the formula now. So it's easier to be able to, and now I have resources built up to be able to, I've got marketing people that I can call and go, hey, what do you think about this? I've seen marketing work. I've seen YouTube work. I've seen how all of these little parts work, and then kind of move on from there. So it makes it a whole lot easier. But it's nicer when you have the blueprint. It's still a lot of work, still a lot of bootstrapping, but it's nicer when you see that you have the blueprint. It makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Selfishly, I have a question because this is something I've been struggling on, not struggling, but trying to improve on. You mentioned you're building those relationships early on. How key was that? Because now that I'm getting into it, you're starting your business and you think you know everything. And you think you got it figured out. At least you have an idea how you figure it out. And then you speak to one, even just talking to you already, you already opened my mind up to some other ideas.
Okay.
How was there like networking and relationship building? Was that easy for you, or was that more of tough? I feel like it's kind of tough for me to get into that.
I'm a total extrovert, so it helped.
I can see
I
that.
just
I
want
can
to,
see that.
I want to go see what people are doing. And for me, that's part of why I started a business doing keynotes and presentations for people, is because I want to hear your story. I am very interested. I want to connect with people. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what you do. I want to hear what you've been through. And so for me in networking, networking is your net worth, is your network, period,
Yep.
hands down. And the way that I like to do business is I go do cool shit with my friends. That's how this works. I actually have a hoodie that says that on it that a friend of mine, Kelly, gave me.
That's good.
I do great stuff with my friends, but the network is what you have. Like I have an inner tribe, and those are the like very close friends. And when things are going wrong and I'm at the end of my rope and I'm not 100% sure what to do, those are the people that I call. And so that's the first step, is having that inner people, and make sure they're entrepreneurs. Because your family's not going to understand what you're going through, and they're going to try their damnedest to help you. It's going to end up hurting you, even though they're trying with the best of intentions. But your thought process are so different than what anyone else in the normies, what the normies think, right? And everyone has an opinion on business and how it works. Look for somebody that's done it. So,
Gotcha.
I mean, the friends that I go to, they have multiple businesses, and large businesses. I mean, some of them have had 8-9 figure exits. But it's one of those things where make sure you have that tribe around you. That's your inner circle. Very small. It's only a few people for me, like 3. And that's it. And I keep it small intentionally. You don't want to go giving it to the rest of the world. These are just those close people that know a lot about you. So that's the first people to look for when you're starting to get that network together. The other are just, who are people that I can leverage? It sounds awful to say, but it's really not. I want people that I know can help me build something. So, marketing person, great person to know. And then I can refer business to them. And, I like to be that I know a guy person. It's like, hey, if you need help with marketing, I know a guy. I can help you out with this guy. If you need help with business development to get you from, 2 million to 5 million, I got this friend of mine. He's really good at it. But getting around entrepreneurs, hearing their stories, hearing what they're going through, hearing that shared that vision that they have is going to start sparking something in you, especially at the beginning. You're going to find that your tribe of people around you, both sometimes the inner, but and the outer as well, is going to change depending on what you need. When you're first starting out, your needs are very different than when you've hit 100,000 a year, than when you've hit 500, than when you've hit 1 million. Yeah. You get different kind of phases with people and different stuff. But when you first start off, just network with whatever entrepreneurs you can get around, and learn from them and hear what they have to say first. And then you'll start to hone that in, like exactly the type of people you want around you, and then you'll start to be able to see the ones that are the actual entrepreneurs, and the ones that are like, I sell my soap at the farmer market. I'm an entrepreneur. It's like, no. If you haven't questioned your sanity, and if you haven't had a moment when you're like, bro, where's the nearest bridge so I can go jump off it, you haven't quite gotten the full entrepreneurial experience. Sorry to be harsh about it, but it is. Yeah. If you haven't screwed it up so many times and you don't want to admit to it, I was joking with Chris the other day about going, wow, I really screwed that up. I must be doing it right. If you haven't screwed it up, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
But it's
Chris coming from the first business, he went through that tribulation period. How, just curiosity, what is he up to now?
Running both businesses. I mean, both Money School and Private Money Club, and just keeps going. They're at a phase where they're getting big enough that it's now start to step back as the CEO, let the executive team take over, kind of go from that direction. That's usually what happens as far as like these larger companies are concerned. Once you get to about 1 million, 2 million is when that happens. So you turn from a startup to a company, and it's an interesting transition when that happens. So yeah, we got some folks that are helping through it. Like good friend of mine, Troy, is helping them through that as well. So
cool. So he made it through the other side.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you do. You don't have a choice. You make it through. There's not another option. Right. And I think that's one of the things about being an entrepreneur that I think really is incredibly freeing, is no matter what the hell happens in your life, you're going to figure out a way around it.
Amen.
We are the scrappiest people in the world. things go wrong, you the way that you handle it, as a friend of mine says, and he doesn't swear, so this is a big thing for him. It's like you put your hands up beside you, just go, ah, shit. Okay, now let's move forward and figure it out. We're gonna make it go right.
Love that. Love that. Being the entrepreneur and like, obviously it's tough and there's a lot going on. Do you have a family? And how, if so, how does your family either support you or how do you like manage like being a family man and a entrepreneur?
Thankfully, it's just me. Because that is a huge balance. I had a client of mine years ago, Shannon, whose husband was in real estate as well and is pretty prominent. And it really damaged him trying to build a company. It took about 16 years to get these companies up and going. And having gone through that, it really there were a lot of issues, and it does take a second fiddle because what ends up happening is our version of work-life balance is completely different than what it is with a job. When you go to a job, you clock in at 9, you clock out at 5. If your boss texts you at 3:00 on a Saturday, it gets bumped to Monday. And you just, unless you're in some sort of a job that, unless you're on call on a weekend or something like that, you can put that aside. We can't, because we're building something. So, as far as relationships are concerned, it's being very transparent with them. Here's the reality of what happened. Negotiation is a huge part of it. Saying I will be home by 6. This is what you will get this day a week. Here's what, understanding, having a spouse that's supportive of what you're doing, kind of understands it. They don't have to 100%, but just understands that your work-life balance is different and that you have to do this to create the life that you are and is bought into your vision. I think that's the other thing as well that I've seen work really well is if your spouse is bought into that vision, that understands what that vision that you have is and and why you're doing all of these things, that makes a huge difference. But yeah, it can be difficult. I'm not going to say that I have like the magic wand that can be like, here you go, this is exactly what to do. But I've seen it go badly. That's some of the things that I didn't do was lack of communication, a spouse that had traditional, how do I want to put it? Like traditional view of what a relationship should be. Husband's home at 6, we eat dinner as a family, we do our thing. And that's not what you're in. If you're dating an entrepreneur, that's not what's going to happen. That is not a realistic expectation of what your relationship's going to look like. It could be answering emails at 3 p.m. on a Sunday. It could be, hey, we're on vacation right now and you have to go do a Zoom call. As long as you're negotiated that with your spouse and said, okay, here's what I have to do. I'll get, and being willing to give something up later in the future. As long as it's a negotiation and it's not, I just have to do this and you allow it to consume your life. It's going to be a part of your life for a while, at least for the first 5-6 years. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's I think anybody listening, that's a good piece of advice there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just to kind of piggyback off of that, managing time and everything, just from what I've seen from you already, you kind of, as an entrepreneur, a lot of entrepreneurs, they kind of put their health to the side. Is that something that you kind of focus on? So, I mean, no, not to be weird or anything, but you look like a healthy dude, man. You look like you got your steps in this morning or something.
I look healthier than I am. No, yes, that is something we do, and I am not good about it at all.
It's hard. Only about 20 pounds. I walk into the computer, and then hours go by, and I'm like, man, my back hurts, and it's like I gotta move.
Well, I'm also in my late 40s, so of course it's going to happen, right? It's just the time is not on my side.
Yeah.
Just Mother Nature is kind of getting to that point going, yep, you're on the short list. That's kind of where we're at.
You can fight back against it though, man. You can fight back a little bit here and there.
Oh, I try. It's funny. The entrepreneurs that I know, once you get to a certain point, if you're bootstrapping a company, your health goes. I mean, you can try. I do try to keep up with it. I try not to eat badly. I try to do what I can. I try to get exercise because exercise, it's funny. And I've noticed myself falling into this more often than not, where that exercise really helps. Like just that being able
helps
to get
in your business
something. Yeah. Cause now it helps me to be able to, it helps me think, it helps me to, be able to manage stress, manage cortisol, which is probably through the roof. Actually, we were talking about Sean Finnegan. I had a joke with him that said that our baseline level of stress is most people's panic.
That's spot on.
and talking about somebody who's been a serial entrepreneur, and I don't know if you know his backstory, but like his mom was a hustler too. I mean, he just came from entrepreneurs. It's kind of his thing. But, it's one of those things where that's one of the things that we tend to let slide very easily, is because when you're going in so many directions, you're so mentally done. I mean, having to manage herd as many cats as we do on a daily basis, that oftentimes that's one thing that goes, especially in that bootstrapping the first couple of years.
Yeah.
That's something that goes quickly. But once you get to a point where your company is running and things are going, and you're not just absolutely just hustling, a lot of folks do really look into, keeping your health up, and how do I optimize it? What kind of nutritional stack do I need to make this work?
Right.
There's all kinds of interesting stuff out there. I saw somebody there's ozone therapy now, where they take blood out of your system, bubble ozone through it, and put it back again. And it's supposed to be really good for you. For the people that I've heard, like the friends I've heard that have done this, have said, dude, for like the next 48 hours, I feel like a rock star.
Wow. Oh my God.
I'd have to go try it. I don't know. We'll see what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was just curious because, like, you probably know, like, grinding all day, working all day, the last thing you want to do is try to go get in the kitchen or, try to provide a meal for yourself. And easiest thing to do is to hit the Burger King or the Wendy's down the road.
Yep.
And that's what I'm trying to stay away from.
I meal prep. So I give myself 1 day a week, like 1 day a week for life admin, just to kind of breathe. And because I heard a while ago, and I've done this where I've completely burned myself to the bone, like done. If you don't choose a day to take off, your body will do it for you, and usually at the worst possible moment. So it's sort of, I have to get to the point where it's like, no, I'm going to pick 1 day a week. So I meal prep. I just do a big ass cook, like of some. I'm one of those people. I don't have to have a huge amount of variety. It's more about just give me my food and let me do my thing. But I'll do a big meal prep. Sundays are my meal prep day. I just
Okay. So Sunday is your admin day.
Yep. Sunday is life admin. Yep. And it just makes it to have that one time to say, now everyth's mapped out. I don't have to think about eating. I've got everything taken care of, like for the week, and it takes some stress off of me, because now I know that's handled.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Outside of work, what kind of activities and hobbies do you get into?
That's funny. I'm kidding. I'm completely messing with you. What's this thing you call a hobby?
Well, do something to take the ease off,
Well, absolutely. So no, I got a Jeep, so I go off-roading. That's always fun. A Jeep's natural state is with a thick layer of mud. I bought a power washer just for that whole purpose, to get the mud out of various places. And it's funny where mud gets into. I got into my car the other day, and so it's been a while since I've been off-roading, and I got into my car the other day, opened the door and saw a patch of mud. I'm like, that's new. I have mud on the top of the hood inside. I'm like, where the hell is that?
You're doing something right then.
True, right? I mean, yeah. It's like, where do I get all this mud? But so I do that. I snowboard. I'm not good at it, but I love it. I've got a couple of friends who are ex-pros, so it's like that was going to happen. So I bought a board off of one of them. He'd been in the X Games for years and was a pro.
Do you mind? I'm a snowboarder myself. Do you mind name?
No, it was Chris Noggle back in the 90s.
Chris Noggle, okay.
He was big back in him, Blair Rusin. They were out with folks like Terry A. Hawkinson, and this was like back in the 90s. But yeah, so I told him I bought a board from him, told him I can get him visitation rights if he wanted it. He loved that board.
Visitation rights for the board?
Yeah. If he wants to have visitation rights, he's welcome to. But it's a very nice headboard. So I do that. That's one of the reasons I want to move to Salt Lake. Is just it's beautiful snowboarding out there, man. Absolutely, Brighton is my home base. Like, yeah.
In Utah, yeah.
Yep. Brighton, hands down. Brighton was the first place I ever went down an actual proper snowboard hill. I didn't hit anyone, didn't need ski patrol. I just worked. Everything made sense. And it was, that will always hold a soft spot in my heart. So every year I try to get out to Brighton whenever I can, just to get out and ride the hills out there.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most beautiful places on earth, man. Oh my God. It is
They get
amazing
great
out there.
snow too.
Yeah. And 50 feet of snow a year is their
Yeah.
average. I think 2 years ago they had 74. I'm like, it's nice to be able to see it and then drive down into the valley and not have 74 feet of snow.
Right. Right. That's the cool thing about Utah, though. Even just to add on to that, when we went to that tax time event,
Yeah.
I was there with my girlfriend. So like this was her in my head, like this is her event. I'm coming piggybacking, learning and stuff too. But
Yeah.
on that last day, man, I took off and I went right up to Park City, Utah for the
Good
day
for you, man.
and just hit the slopes. And
I was
that's
if you're in Provo though, the best place to go there is Sundance. So if you go up
heard.
into like Provo Canyon, Sundance Resort is up there, like where the Sundance Film Festival started,
Yep.
and they have some really good slopes out there too. So when you get a chance, check that out. They also have the world's longest zip line. It's three
Wow.
quarters of a mile long. You hit 60 miles an hour in the middle of it. It is an interesting experience. But if you ever get a chance to go back out
Wow.
there again, Sundance is only about 30 minutes from where you were at. And it's beautiful out there, man.
Yeah, I saw they have like that big welcoming thing for the Sundance. They had the tax. I think they had their dinner at the Sundance
But
resort. Like,
oh, they might have. Yeah, I
yeah.
think Todd does some stuff up there. Yep. Yeah,
Wow,
man.
that's awesome. I'm gonna have to let my wife know that you're familiar with the tax hive guys.
Hell yeah, absolutely.
That'd be
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
all right, well, shoot, get back onto the trail a little bit.
Sure,
What
man.
back to your business life? I don't know. Obviously, we're here talking about Andrew Chestnut today. I don't feel like I don't want to just keep bombarding you with the same questions, but
Yeah, man.
what do you got going on in the future for the podcasting platform?
So my goal, my big ass hairy ambitious goal, is to help 100,000 entrepreneurs to be able to get out of obscurity. A
Wow.
lot of people don't understand what authority is. And so it's funny. I was talking with somebody I know, Justin, and he's doing a thing in Orlando where it's about content creators, and I love what they're doing. I mean, they have some awesome people there, and I think content creation is good. I think there's going to be a lot of social media is a thing. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, and we need a lot of content for it. But there's also another side to it called authority, and what that is just because you know what you're doing doesn't mean other people know what you're doing.
Mm.
No, you know what you're doing. And so my goal is to help 100,000 people to be able to build that authority through it, and using systems that I've helped to build these two companies and to be able to move on from there. And the two things that I know best are keynotes and podcasts.
Mm.
Podcasts are great. They're basically authority by proximity. I can get a whole bunch of really cool people really smart people, get them onto a podcast. You know, like you and I, we're sitting here chatting. We're having a great time. There's some authority that we can grab from each other just because now we're talking about something. It's really an interesting concept. So yeah. So as far as the podcasts, just keep going on it, figure out what it is, kick the tires, and I
Yeah.
love helping entrepreneurs to be able to build those podcasts as well. Because even though AI can do a lot of things, that's great. It can do the editing and shorts and all kinds of stuff like that. It cannot help you with the actual topics that you're talking about, or building that rapport, or knowing exactly who to get onto your podcast, or strategies or stuff like that. It's okay at it. I don't see it being too much better than that. But same thing with keynotes. Yeah, I can write a decent keynote with AI, but there's a lot more that goes into writing stories than just kind of popping into AI and hope it works. So
Right. Right.
I want people to
Chat
be able to help
GPT.
that. Yeah, yeah. But I
Yeah.
want people to be able to take that amazing wisdom that they have and transfer it to others using stories. Podcasts are how I start my days, man. I mean, it's nice to be able to listen to a podcast in the morning and hear what another entrepreneur is going through. And
Mm.
you don't feel as alone, because there's this transition that
That's
happens when you're in business, where you're kind of moving beyond your old friends group who are going to try to support. I mean, often they try to support you. They have no idea what you're going through. And there's this void that happens before you now build your tribe of entrepreneurs around you.
Hmm.
And podcasts are a great way to kind of bridge that gap. So you kind
Yeah.
of go
What kind of?
from, yeah.
Sorry to cut you off there. Just what kind of shows are you listening to? Podcasts?
Oh, dude, I'm listening to everything. I love Joe Rogan, man. I love that
Yeah.
podcast. It's just nice to hear a whole bunch of people to kind of get on and say, just kind of chat. It's like this,
Right.
that's why I was really excited to be on with you today, is because it's sort of like, hey, let's just sit back and chat for a little bit. And dude, I could do this for hours.
Yeah, same.
I
Like,
love the format, man.
I have no script. There's no like iPad in front of me. There's a really good podcast I listen to. You probably are familiar. It's called The Diary of the CEO
Oh
with
yeah.
Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah.
And I like the production. It's a very well produced show. And even though he has like his show notes, like he has an iPad that he goes off of, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
No.
But I do like to just kind of off the cuff, kind of see where it goes kind of vibe. So I really do like the JRE as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now I've been really digging on a good friend of mine, Kelly Cardenas, has a podcast called the Kelly Cardenas Podcast, or The Vibe. He just renamed it, The Vibe with Kelly Cardenas. And he is an awesome cat, awesome human being, one of my favorite people, and has this really cool, same kind of thing. He just gets a bunch of entrepreneurs together. We go chat about it. He does a bunch of stuff, but I've been kind of vibing out to his thing. His thing is about vibe, like the corporate culture vibe. So awesome thing. If Kelly Cardenas, The Vibe, to give him a total shout out. That's an awesome style. Yeah. The guy with the big blonde dreadlocks, it's going to go well.
That's what I'm saying. I like his vibe.
No, he's one of my favorite humans, man. So yeah.
And just scrolling over his content at the Vibe with Kelly Cardenas. Mm-hmm. He's on episode 670.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, he's been doing it years and years. Yep.
How do you, because just off of YouTube, I'm sure he's on Spotify, Apple Music and everything.
Yeah.
Let's say 2 episodes ago, he had episode 578, had 0 views. How do you mentally power through that for years and years, keep putting out content when nobody's really watching? Like, I know it's hard. I had a YouTube channel. I was doing vlogs. Mm-hmm. And at first it came into like, I just wanted to have fun, record some of my memories, and have something that like a little home style video for me and my girl to look back on. And then as I started doing it more, I started to get more emotionally and like attached to it. Like, all right, these are, in my eyes, they're getting good. I want people to watch that, but the views weren't coming in. So it was like a mental, like, how do you get over that mental barrier? I'm sure working with podcasters, you see that all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a general overall business strategy and consistency. Just show up. I mean, that's really all it is. There's a lot of times in business where what happens is there's nothing. Then you get to a point where you start questioning your sanity. And am I doing the right thing? Or wait, maybe they're not liking this or that sort of, and then bam, it takes off. But it's that consistent, always showing up all the time. I mean, there are webinars. Really good example. There's a webinar that Chris does every Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday evening at like 4:30, called Ask Me Anything. That started off as Ask a Flipping Expert. So about 2:00 in the afternoon, we would sit down, going, "What do we want to talk about?" And we'd map it all out. About 8:00 on a Wednesday night, we would go through and do this thing called Ask a Flipping Expert. And it was based on what we had going on, what people were asking, what the feedback was. And I kind of be honest, for a long time, I think it was like, I think there was like one groupie and our mothers, and that was it. There was nothing. 8 years later, hundreds of people are on minimum every week. And so it's just one of those things, that consistency, even though it doesn't look like it's picking up, it is. Authority is not something that comes in like a massive clap of thunder. It comes in very quietly and starts building and building and building, and then grows to a crescendo. And so it's just keeping that consistent pattern. You can tweak the ship a little bit. So if, there's a topic that works really well, keep going in that direction. You can steer the ship, but always show up. Just that consistency is what's going to absolutely grow.
Yeah. And that's like when we started the podcast, I think before we hit record, you said the biggest thing is just starting.
Yep.
And my little brother, he has like a little side hustle. He's like making like carbon fiber like accessories for cars.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
And he was kind of struggling because he kind of introverted, didn't really like have anybody to lean into. And then I just my piece of advice to him was like, man, just keep creating, just keep making stuff, and just keep doing your thing.
Yep. And
you never know.
Showing up. You don't. It keep showing up. I mean, that's the one thing. The best piece of advice I ever got from any person ever was, I was at this moment where I was at the end of my rope. Nothing was working. it was that void where, I was questioning my sanity.
Yeah.
Which is a
Do you
natural part
mind
of
me
the
asking
process.
how long ago that was?
It was, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I got to the point where, and I was just frustrated. I was venting to Chris one day, and he said to me, the only way you can fail is to quit. That's
Mm,
it. Only way you can screw this up is to quit. And it stuck with me. It goes back to that consistency that says, you will figure out a way to make this happen. Shit's going to go wrong. I knew somebody years ago who had a company with Richard Branson right around 2008, 2009,
wow.
lost a $70 million company. Things are going to go wrong at whatever
I
level
would have
you're
found
at.
that bridge, man.
I think he was close. But you're going to find a way to make it happen, and no matter what happens, and it's just showing up. After something like that, you give yourself some time, a couple of days,
Yeah.
regroup, feel your feelings, go do your thing. But then I think it took him a week, and he's back on this. Okay, let's do this. Let's figure out where we're going to go from here. And that tenacity is what really sets the people who are true entrepreneurs, because we've seen some shit.
Right.
We've been through it. That resilience and that tenacity and just freaking showing up is the best way that you can make it work. Just yeah, and
It's
that's why
kind
I
of,
tell people do it. You're going to find a way to your ape brain is going to find a way to keep you safe, and it's going to try to find a way to say, well, that's too scary, that's too risky, that's too no. It's going to find an excuse to get out of it. It's getting over that excuse. And kudos to your brother for doing that, man, because that just really sounds cool. And I'm kind of a little jealous, honestly. That sounds like a really cool thing. But how long has he been at it? I'm just curious now.
yeah, he's 19 and he's probably, I guess cause he's actually getting like real carbon fiber and he's molding it to like specific pieces that somebody would want. So the
Yeah.
learning process, maybe about 3 or 4 months. And then I guess my parents probably helped him out with like purchasing the materials that he needs to like press and mold and then finding like I'm blanking on the name, like a supplier for the actual carbon fiber. So I would say maybe like a year,
Bro's
like just
19.
19.
19.
But yeah, and I don't want
Do
to
you know
pat
how
myself on
set
the
up for life
back.
he is right now?
No, he like at 19, I wasn't really in that mindset.
No,
But
I
I
wasn't
will
even
say,
close.
yeah, no, I will say I don't want to take all the credit, but like you're saying, the being the black sheep of the family, like once I started putting myself in these positions and like they're like, oh, what is Noah doing? We have no idea. And then like like they could see that I started slowly figuring out and started seeing a little bit of success. By no means am I successful, but I think it's opened their eyes and their doors to like try different things.
Yep.
And
Yep.
which it's like a proud brother moment to like see them like just trying to build something and do it for themselves.
Yeah. And you're not giving yourself enough credit. You started this. And I think that just even by being there, we think that being a mentor has to be walking in and telling everyone what to do with it. No, no. Sometimes it's just being the example, that setting a higher standard and somebody saying, no,
Mm,
here's a new reality. And I think it's something that really is good for you. Kudos to you, man, for even encouraging that just by doing your thing. So you
yeah.
did a lot with that, man. I think, definitely, take some of that credit that you're just by doing that, by going out and doing your thing and showing a different world and showing a different way to do something automatically helped him. And yeah, if he's doing this at 19, man, he is going to have a skill set that is a lot of his peers are going to not have, even if they're in their 40s, man. That is amazing.
Yeah.
I love hearing stories like this, like of people just, I'm going to go do my own thing and I'm going to go out there. I mean, I will encourage any entrepreneur to get started, but, to hear somebody at 19 doing that, man, that is freaking awesome.
Yeah. And Andrew, it's not tough either because our parents, we come from a military background. So both our
Yeah.
parents in military, like
Yep.
get a job, go to
Not in
school.
this world. Yep.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
So like once I got out of school and I like didn't hop into a job, they're like, oh God. And then like I mentioned, like you start seeing like the process and now they're kind of, even my parents, their mind are more open to like, oh, there's other opportunities out there than joining the army or getting a 9 to 5 job.
I think it's one of the things that's hard about entrepreneurs is that our family doesn't understand what we're doing, and it's hard for them. There's a learning curve for them too. because with the best of intentions, they're like, well, oh my God, you're going to fail. You're not going to do this right. Something's going to go wrong. I see all these things going terribly, blah, blah, blah. And all of this really bad programming. And it's being able to push through not only your bad programming, but theirs. And I think that's one of the hardest parts of this. And then not getting that support. Again, they're not, I don't ever want to present a parent who's concerned about a kid being an entrepreneur. I never want to present them in a bad light ever, because it's not that they're actively trying to negate, or they're not trying to actively hold their children back. They're trying to protect them. And that is always a noble cause. But it's also understanding when we have to be able to just let go and say, you guys can go do your thing. Had this huge thing with my mom, who is very, very fear-based. And just, it was a problem at first for her because she didn't know how to support. So she tried to support in the best way she could. And it was not the advice that I needed at that point. It was very risk averse, and you cannot be risk averse and be an entrepreneur ever. And they're just two completely different worlds. And so it was one of those things where just pushing through that can be difficult, but eventually they come around, eventually they see they see it happen, but it is a difficult part.
I'm sure they're probably proud of you today. Do you have any siblings or?
One younger brother. So,
okay.
I am the entrepreneur of the family. But it was funny, like with your brother, my brother started to sell on eBay, and he goes out and gets like Matchbox cars at the dollar store for really cheap, and then sells them for like 5 times what he bought them for.
Retail arbitrage. Love it.
If I ever said, hey, go run your business like this, he would never listen. But it was just that standard's different now.
Yeah.
You have more of an effect on the people around you than you think you do, especially, when it comes to siblings. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow. And kind of touch back in that first mention. It's kind of like back in sports where I remember my dad would always I grew up playing ice hockey. My dad would always say like hustle beats talent, and converting that into the business world, like what you're saying, just showing up, it's kind of almost the same thing a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like hustle will beat talent any day of the guy.
Yeah, even though like there might be a super smart dude, graduated MBA from college, but if he doesn't show up consistently every day, that dude that's working harder has the possibility to either catch up to him or surpass him.
Yep, hands down, absolutely. Yep, it is about the hustle, and it's just showing up. Like I said earlier, just that consistency, just being there, doing it over and over, even when it sucks, even when you don't think it's working, even with those days you just really don't feel like showing up. Even on a Sunday at 2 p.m., even when it is, just keep showing up, and that hustle does pay off eventually. I've seen it with every entrepreneur I've talked to. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the hardest part too, man.
Well, the thing to remember is you're doing something that most people wouldn't. And we're guys, we're competitive. It's how it works. Right. And having that bit of a competition going, this is something somebody else would not do. And sometimes that's enough to keep you going, is just realizing that. Yeah.
Right.
We're going to do it. And sometimes out of sheer spite. Oh, you told me I couldn't?
That's a lot of where I get my drive. Like sometimes that's where I get my drive from, especially if like I go into like a client meeting and either I don't present the offer very well, or they don't see the value that I'm presenting, and they kind of like shut it down. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, instead of taking that and, twiddling your thumbs, like use that as ammo, use that as firepower and go harder.
Hands down, man. Absolutely. Yes. And use that fire, use it to as long as it doesn't become destructive, use that fire, man.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, man. Cool.
I don't want to hold up too much of your time, but as far as continuing education, how I feel like just now growing up I was never a school guy. I hated reading. I hated sitting in class, but now that I'm getting older and I'm getting more interested in business, I'm like, all right, I like to learn. Is there any are you a book reader, podcast consumer? How do you continue to grow your knowledge?
Books. Oh, I'm a voracious reader. I'm doing one on AI leadership. I got to remember what's the name of the book? I always am in the middle of a book, and every day I read something.
Audio book or physical book?
Yes.
Okay.
But it depends. Some I'll sit down and read. But a lot of times it's going to be, this is an audio book. The AI Driven Leader by Jeff Woods is currently what I'm almost at the end of. So just AI is the world. ChatGPT is already really changed the business world, and it's going to change it again, and understanding how to leverage that as a tool. A lot of being able to go out and how do I put it? Just being able to go out and do like low level tasks, like here, help me schedule this, help me, just check my mail, go do stuff like that. All of those low level jobs are going to be taken over by AI very soon, if not have already been taken over. And so what it's really requiring us to do is to completely rethink how we do things. So like really good example. I know I produce podcasts and podcast production is part of what I do, but that's not what I do. I help you build authority. I can go out. Riverside is an awesome platform. It will go through, do the edits, make all the shorts from it, and does a pretty good job with all of that. 30 minutes, I can have an entire podcast episode edited, right?
Wow.
But it's the structure, it's the strategy behind it that it's not great at. And so we have to completely rethink the way that we do it. I actually just did a pitch deck for somebody for venture capital, and we went through and had, it's one of those things, like I have a business degree, so I could have done these forecasts for them automatically, but it would have been about 3 or 4 hours worth of work. And so what I did is popped all of their P&Ls into ChatGPT, said, here, what does this forecast look like? It popped it out. I verified all the information to make sure it was right. And in 20 minutes did what it would have taken me 3 to 4 hours to do. So just, there's, it's something we can leverage at this point. And so I wanted to make sure that I'm up on that trend, and kind of understand what's going to happen and how I can use that as a tool inside my business. And so that's kind of why I'm reading that right now. Yeah.
And you learn how to use AI by doing it yourself.
Yep.
And reading the books. You would say like you're like a AI prompt engineer. I know that's like they're like getting all these crazy names, AI agents and prompt engineering, and the world is crazy out there.
I've tried it, screwed it up a bunch of times, found something that worked and goes with it. AI person.
Okay.
I do have a computer science background, so I know how they work. I know what a large language model is and like some of the innards of it and kind of where it goes. But honestly, sometimes it's just sit down, kick the tires, see what happens, and see if it works. And that's kind of what I did as far as ChatGPT was concerned. And you always be careful of it. Double check, make sure it's not hallucinating, or what did I hear somebody where it just completely makes shit up. It's called confabulation, is I believe the actual term for it, where it just sort of just totally makes stuff up.
It can do that sometimes, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just sometimes it's a matter of reading about it. But as long as you don't get into a situation that I hear referred to as analysis paralysis, where instead of just it's a fear-based response that is very, very easy to get into, where you don't actually execute. You just sit back and go, okay, I'm not going to do this till I'm ready. Well, let me tell you, you're never going to be ready. Just do it. Just do it. Screw it up a bunch of times. I mean, you're going to screw it up anyway. You might as well do it sooner rather than later. Fail fast, fail often, and figure it out.
That's good. I heard somebody say that. That stuck with me for a while.
Yep. And it is great. It's fail fast, fail often. And it works. It works really well, man.
Yeah. Being in business for a while, did you see AI, like this whole AI storm coming? Like, could you spot this from a mile away, or did it just kind of like, boom?
It showed up on our doorstep one day, and it's like, what the hell is that?
Really? Were you open to it, or was it more like, were you kind of like...
I was skeptical at first, because any new thing that comes out, you always want to just do some due diligence on it. You don't just want to jump on the bandwagon immediately. But it was, let me take a look at it, see where it can work. So it took a little bit for me to get used to it. Once I actually sat down, had the time to just say, okay, let's find a use case for this and then see if it can help. And kind of listening to the people around me, who had already been working it and had already been working with it. I sat it down, put it through its paces, and got to the point where it had proved itself as a good tool. And I think that's the best way to do it, is to make it prove whatever you come across, make it prove itself as a good tool, and then say, okay, well, now I can start using it for this. Now I can use it for this. And then it just opened up a door to something completely different. So I wouldn't say I was like somebody who was a big fan of it at first. I wanted it to prove itself. But once it did, now it's an integral part of my day. I use it quite a lot.
Yeah. You think it's going to stick around for a while? I know a lot of people are saying like it's like business is not going to be the same. Marketing's not, content creation, everything's not going to be the same with this new AI wave. But kind of like you, I'm a little skeptical too. Like maybe it's just like a phase. Like maybe there might be AI 2.0 that comes out next year.
I think it's going to stick around for a long time, and I think it has already fundamentally changed the business world, and it's going to continue to do that. So it's not a flash in the pan. It is very much going to be around. Being somebody who's old enough to have known like the beginning of the internet,
Don't say it like that, Andrew. Come on.
I can tell you right now that kind of caught on. It's a little bit of a big thing right now. But I mean, there's some technologies that would come in as a flash in the pan and go, but those are usually the ones that don't have an application, or they're a gimmick. So they try to solve a problem that really isn't actually a problem, or they try to find a problem to solve. AI is very, very much going to be a big part of our world. But the thing with AI that we have to remember is it's a very good statistical model. That's what it is. It's that's essentially what a large language model is.
So that exactly.
It's really good at predicting what the next step is going to be. But it's not, but what it is, without going into a massive rabbit hole about exactly what a large language model is, it's kind of finding a path in this massive data set that says, okay, here's the next thing we're going to do. And then it's really kind of good at predicting that. But it's not good. It's kind of good at reasoning right now. They're getting a lot better at reasoning than they used to be. But if you think about it, what you're putting in is what you're getting out. I have a copywriter on my team, and which is one of those, everyone's saying, oh, well, ChatGPT is going to take away copywriting. And I'm like, no, not really. It's going to raise the standard of copywriting, but it's not going to take it away completely. And what you're going to find, and you're finding this now, I had somebody write me an email the other day, and I use ChatGPT a lot, so I can spot it from a mile away. And I'm like, you did a really good job with that prompt, but you wrote that with ChatGPT.
You can
telltale signs.
Oh yeah, you can see it.
I give him props. He did a good job at trying to make it not sound like it, but it sounded like ChatGPT. And I think we all know what that experience is we've gotten something that's like, oh, dude, you wrote that website with ChatGPT. I think there's a time and place for that. But the way that my copywriter explained it, he's like, look, you have the worst funnels in the world and the best funnels in the world, and ChatGPT takes the average. The problem is there's a hell of a lot more terrible funnels than there are really good ones. And so it errs towards the side of writing mediocre content. And so I don't think it will ever completely do away with humans. But I do think it does. I mean, if you're a C grade copywriter, ChatGPT is going to take over and you're not going to have a job. But if you really hone your skills and become very, very good at like like what I do with Keynotes, I use ChatGPT to help me out with Keynotes. But the end goal is it's my strategy, and trying to write those. What I get out of it isn't a finished product. It's nothing I would ever release to a client. It's sort of get me 80% of the way there, and then I'll take you the additional 20 with my expertise. Wow. So I think that's what's going to happen with the way that AI is going to work at this point. It's good for small tasks. It's good for, I use it as a thought partner. So sometimes I'll sit down with ChatGPT and go, okay, the ADHD word vomits. It's like, okay, here's my idea. I'm going to get to this thing. You're going a million miles an hour. You just got to vomit on it. It's really good at taking that and kind of breaking it down and structuring it. Or ask me questions about this. Test my mindset on this. Am I in the right direction? I've had it do SWOT analysis for me. So a SWOT analysis is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So you go out to your competitors and say, okay, who are my competitors in this area? What are they doing well? Where is there a gap? And what can I do? It's good at research like that for me. And then bring it back to me, and I make the final decision as to what I'm going to do as far as action on that is concerned. That's one thing it's not great at, but it's good as research. I will sometimes sit and have a conversation with ChatGPT and just go, okay, talk me through this. Let me work through this. And it's really good at reflecting stuff back, I use
ChatGPT a lot. And when you mentioned that email came through and you noticed that they use ChatGPT, do you look at that person differently, knowing that they're using AI on you? How do you look at that? Because I sent an email the other day too, and again, I don't copy and paste from ChatGPT. I'll take it, take some ideas from it, mix up my own words. But in my head, I'm like, am I is this cheating? Did this person gonna feel some type of, if I told them I wrote this offer with ChatGPT, would they devalue it? Or how do you look at it? Do you devalue that?
I look at it as a tool. If you just like copy and paste it out of ChatGPT, yeah, I'm gonna judge you, and it's not gonna be good. You know?
Yeah.
If you spend some time actually putting it in, putting into it, and there's some value in it, and I can see that you wrote it with ChatGPT, that's different. So as long as I get some value out of what you're writing, I've honestly gone through it. Being in the bootstrap point of a company, I am going in. What is your? I like to ask people, what is your title? Yes. Everything. I do all of it. The problem you run into with that situation, though, is that often I need to save my brain power for the things that will move the needle forward. And there are sometimes I'm writing an email going, bro, I got to tap ChatGPT in here. I need a hand. This is not coming out right. I sound like a dick. I need a hand.
Make me sound kinder, like a human.
Can you make this nicer?
Yeah, for real.
Or I sound like I sound like I have some sort of a weird social disorder and I need a hand with this. So sometimes it's good for stuff like that, just to kind of reword stuff. But as long as there's some value in it, so it's still taking my words, it just kind of tweaks them around a little bit, makes them into complete sentences, fills in a couple blanks, and does its thing. So for stuff like that, I will never look down at somebody for finding a shortcut. But if it's low quality, I will totally judge you for that. Even if you were writing it yourself, I will totally judge you for that. Just give it some effort.
It's bad.
You don't do perfect. You don't do perfect. Just give me a little effort. Make it look like you've actually thought this stuff through. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that, especially on like LinkedIn posts. Like you can just tell that these long, because obviously it's like a long form written is like the kind of the platform was that what it likes, and it's everywhere now, man. It's just like I even look at it. It's not that I kind of look at them differently. I won't lie. Like I'm kind of like shrugging these person off because it's like it's noticeable. Everybody's doing it.
Yeah. I think we're going to come to a point where ChatGPT is creating this and ChatGPT is reading it. That's what we're going to get to.
Dude,
it's like a ChatGPT inception thing going on. Yeah.
It's like, it's going to be my ChatGPT is going to have a podcast with Andrew's ChatGPT. We don't like.
All right. I just got triggered. That doesn't sound like fun. It sounds awful.
I know, but I mean, who knows? That's where I just heard I was listening to this podcast called The Rundown. It's like an investor podcast. They're saying Amazon they're starting to do robotic Amazon delivery drivers that are going to be delivering boxes to your door, powered by like Ring and ChatGPT, man.
We've been trying that for years and it's never worked. I just know we're not Japan,
I know. They do the drone package deliveries. Like, what happened to that?
Because, I totally want to see a drone delivery in the south side of Chicago. It's like, no. It's like right in the Compton, right in the worst part of LA. I'm like, no, not going to happen.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Or anywhere in Detroit.
Right.
I just don't see that being a thing, man.
Before we head out of here, man, I just want to pull up your Instagram one more time. And I know you have this link in bio in here. I just kind of want to go over the Tuesdays 2 webinar. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I've renamed it. I got to update that actually. I've renamed it to my Tuesday Masterclass because what I want to do is I want to show people how to be able to build authority and why you can do it. And so every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, I do a Masterclass just to show you the steps that you can take to build authority in your company. Again, if you're out there and you're trying to get your name out, the authority is a huge part and a lot of people overlook it. So what I mean by authority is you know what you're talking about, but do others know you know what you're talking about? And so this will actually give you actionable steps. It's not just a sales pitch. I hate doing that shit. What I want to do is show people how to actually build it, what authority is, some of the blind spots you should look at as far as authority are concerned, and how I've used it with keynotes and with podcasts. So that's really what that is. That comes back to, having the technique as far as like bringing somebody onto a webinar, masterclass, whatever you want to call it, works really well. And so that's kind of something I've implemented and I love doing them. A mentor of mine years ago told me, give your best stuff away for free. It's the giver's gain side of things and it works. And for me, it's like, I don't need, yes, I have proprietary things as far as my process is concerned, but honestly, with a goal of 100,000 people and helping them to build their authority, I'm not going to do it myself. I'm going to need a hand with it. I want to be able to give to people who might not be in a situation where, they can hire somebody to do it. They're bootstrapping. They're kind of, they're in that phase of the business where they're not quite sure if it's actually going to work, or that the money's not coming in yet, or, because it's hard. I wanted to be able to give somebody the ability to say, hey, take a look at this, or have you thought about these things? So that way people can at least start integrating it into their business in some way. So that's what that webinar is meant to be.
That's
just
awesome.
kind of come and learn more about authority, what it's like, how to do it, that sort of thing.
And that's every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday. Again, consistent.
That's showing up. That's showing up.
It's the only way to do it.
Yeah. And is that, for anybody listening that could be interested, is that a free resource that they can use, or is that a paid webinar?
No, the webinar's free. The masterclass is free. Come on, join us. Yep. Just register for it and they can do their thing. Yep.
Shoot, I might take advantage of that myself. So hopefully I'll see some other people in there listening to this.
Absolutely.
The Authority Forge, that is your, I guess that's your new baby.
That's my new baby. Yep. Okay. It's really a rebrand of a company I've had for a while, but so the Authority Forge will help people to build that authority. Again, authority is, what you're talking about. Now, do others know what you're talking about?
Right. Which is the hard part to figure out. Yeah.
And those of us that are entrepreneurs, we're very good at what we do. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was just frustrated as hell one day going, why the hell aren't they getting this? I don't think he said hell, but we're going to use that word.
I like that.
I think he was more colorful about it. But what it was is he was just frustrated. And I'm like, look, bud, you've been doing this for 15 years. You can jump from point A to point F in one jump because you're good at it. You're an expert. But most people need to be able to fill in B, C, D, and E to make it work. And that's where your frustration is. It's not that they're not getting it. They're not there yet. And you need to be able to explain it to them in a way that they can get it. Because, you think about trying to explain how to tie your shoe to somebody. If anyone has kids in their lives and trying to teach them how to tie their shoe, it's the hardest thing you've ever taught, even though it's something we do literally every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, because we have to start thinking about these middle parts that our brain just sorts of, puts in. And as far as authority is concerned, it's really important to have that step of being able to explain the B, C, D, and E inside that process. And so coming from a learning background, that's one thing I found out I was very, very good at, was helping people to bridge that gap. And to be able to say, what other things in this are we going to have to look at? What are some of the, what are some of the questions you would ask, or what are some of the steps that we need to fill in to be able to do that? And so, and then I also found that authority by proximity, we were talking about that with podcasts, where, getting around really smart people makes you look smarter. Sounds really stupid, but it works.
It works.
And being on a podcast, you get a different vibe from a podcast than you do from a keynote. So a keynote is, I'm standing up, I'm talking, I'm doing my thing. It's somebody talking at you to some extent, in a presentation at an event, whatever it happens to be. And it's a good way to transfer information. But if they want to see another side of you, podcast is the best way to do that as well. So now you've hit two different types of communication, which, the more types of communication you can hit with somebody, the better. So like my presence here is very different than if you heard me on stage. It's a different style. And so, yeah. So those I want to help people do that.
Yeah. The real version of the podcast, kind of like JRE, I remember when they were trying to do the whole Trump and Kamala Harris thing, you can't bullshit a 2-hour podcast.
No.
You can bullshit a 45-minute keynote speech. I wouldn't say bullshit. That sounds
No, I know what you mean. It's more rehearsed, and it's less, This is more off the cuff. So there's a reason you used a keynote, and you use it when you need to go on and just generally educate somebody about who you are and what you do and get them to know, like, and trust you. But to actually get them to know, like, and trust you, the podcast can help out with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have some other comments on that, but we'll leave that aside.
Yeah, we'll stay out of the politics for now, for sure.
Word salad. That's all I have.
Yeah. So does the podcast pros and keynote architectures, is that piggybacking off of the Authority Forge, or are those separate things? Okay.
No, all part of the same umbrella. So Authority Forge is the whole umbrella besides it. I called myself a keynote architect years ago, and it stuck, because that's basically what I do. We help
Yeah,
you
that's
to
great.
architect that. When I get you onto a call and we start mapping out your keynote, it's basically a conversation. That's actually where my podcast started. I was
Mm.
on with a client and friend of mine, Dennis, and we were doing his keynote. And at the end of our mapping session, he's like, "Look, dude, you know this is a podcast, right? Just go release this, do your thing."
Yeah.
And my podcast, the Hustle and Grind podcast, started because of that moment. And so what I wanted to do is I love entrepreneurs. And you know what? One of the fun parts about being an entrepreneur is when you're in the middle of a train of thought and it derails.
Oh,
And now we're going to play that fun game of try to figure out where the hell Andrew was. And it's
yeah, yeah. No pressure. No pressure.
all right,
No
man.
pressure.
That's
Dennis,
all
you
good,
guys are
man.
talking
But yeah.
keynote. Yeah, keynote with Dennis.
Oh, there we go.
Really give.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was the keynote architects and the blueprints. And so that's where it started is just, I decided to call it a keynote architect because that's what I do. I don't write it for you. It's your words. I help guide you through it. And then we rehearse it and we go through. And so I make sure that when the question I like to ask people is if somebody asks you tomorrow, hey, can you come and speak at my event? Could you do it? And most of the people I work with couldn't. And so they need to be able to, can you be ready at any moment? It also really helps with like being on podcasts. To go way back to the beginning of our conversation, and I was saying that I helped Chris out and to be able to explain what infinite banking is. And when I used a term, specially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy. And that was a term that we had come up with to tell people this isn't standard whole life insurance. You can't just go out and get a whole life insurance policy and hope it works. There's something different about this. You get these pre-recorded scripts like Keynote Architect, like, these things that you can use to define what you do. And it really helps you to be able to just be ready with these terms that set you apart, explain what you do really easily. And so that's something that happens with the keynotes that is kind of a value add for us. It's sort of a side effect of being in the keynoting world is that we have these specific things that we can do to really
Yeah.
clean up your message and make it clearer.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, man.
Dude, that's awesome. And a keynote and a webinar, for people that are not listening, if you had to give somebody a recommendation on like trying to build that authority, get to know, like, trust, and then eventually buy from you, would you rather lean to a webinar presentation or in-person keynote presentation for somebody interested?
I do a keynote first because you can repurpose that as a webinar. Like the masterclasses you'll see on Tuesdays, I'm doing as a webinar. I'm doing as a keynote as well. I can tweak them a little bit to make it a couple of things I'll change about it, but I can use them for either one.
Gotcha. Because
Yeah.
I remember back in the day when I guess I'm new, but when the whole make money online digital marketing came out, it was like always free opt-in to your webinar to this
Yep.
sales pitch.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a little different than that. That the technique works. I've seen it work, but the thing with it is make sure that it doesn't just sound like a massive sales pitch. You're not pitch slapping somebody. You want to give some value out of it, and so that's why I've rebranded as a masterclass where I'm giving you enough value that you can go out and act. There's actionable items in it, and I do that intentionally because I want to be able to give. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to feel like I did many years ago when was trying to find a real estate group and I was just being pitch slapped. I don't want that feeling again. I don't want my clients to have to go through or their audience to have to go through that. That's not how you change the world. That's how you piss a bunch of people off. That's really what you're doing. And so, you want to be able to change the world, make sure you're giving some sort of value.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure you probably do that through your podcast as well. It says on Apple Podcasts, you released your first podcast May 7th last year.
Yep.
And dude, as I'm just scrolling.
Yeah, I'm at
Yes,
118
man.
episodes. Yeah. I release twice a week.
Very
Tuesdays and Fridays.
impressive.
That is the grind. That was a rabbit hole I went down last year. There was a solid month and a half. I think I was recording 5 episodes a week, 6 episodes a week to get a backlog. So I just rebranded or just rebooted. So we're doing season 2. Just was released. I think my first ones were released last week. So last week in May, and so we're
That's awesome.
going on with the second season of it. Yeah, man.
And I don't want this question to seem like it's like a selfish question because obviously I'm just starting a podcast. But hopefully, if anybody's listening and they want to start a podcast and there's like it's just something they want to do, what I was not like, what is that piece of advice, but like, what is that thing to where like you felt like the click, like you must have felt something's like, all right, I'm heading down the right direction with the way that I'm structuring my podcast. For
You're
anybody listening that wants to get into it.
you're never going to feel like that unless you've done it. I know people that will not be in a podcast that's less than a year old because most podcasts make it to 6 episodes is the average. And
Mm,
so consistency is part of it, and just do it. You're going to screw it up. It's going to go badly. You're going to have bad episodes. You know, that's how it's going to work. Figure it out. That's it. Do it. And one piece of advice I can give, don't give too much of a backlog as far as your episodes are concerned. You kind of want to, you want to be able to release at some point in the next month and a half. So don't go too far with that. That was one thing I did wrong is I got a huge backlog. And so I'm recording a podcast today that releases in 6 months, and that's not cool. That's not good. But it also didn't allow me to be able to get feedback. And so I couldn't see the number of downloads on the episodes. And so therefore, like, I'm 6 months behind on something going, great, I got to ride this out for the next 6 months. I could be doing it better. And so something to think about when you're doing that. But yeah, just do it, figure it out, get a few episodes going, check to see your metrics on it. Data is wonderful. Or if you're Kevin O'Leary, if you don't know your numbers, you're dead to me.
I'm out.
I have a whole story about how Sean pitched Kevin O'Leary, Sean from Tax Hive, how he pitched him. Yeah, at some point you'll need to hear that story. Follow him on Instagram. I think he tells it there.
Sounds like a good one. Sounds like a good one.
But, the thing, though, is just do it. Try to, you'll figure it out in the way. You'll make it work. It has to be yours. Podcasts aren't something that is 100% systematic. It has to be your voice. It has to be your version. It's your podcast, and it will find its footing. But it takes about a year. Yeah.
Amen. Where do you see the future of podcasting going to be in the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
Um,
Is it going
I
to
think
die
we're going to
out, or
see.
is
No, I think it's going to be always around in some iteration. I think with ChatGPT and with AI, I think we're going to see a lot of mediocre content coming out, just because of, people are going to do low effort. They're going to, put whatever it is, a prompt into ChatGPT and say, here, write this for me, and then go from there.
the barrier to
But
entry is less now?
it's much lower. The thing, though, the higher quality ones are going to get the most traction. So it's not about just putting out a podcast. It's about making sure there's a strategy behind it, and that you follow that strategy, and putting some thought into it. Make sure you select your guests correctly. Don't just take anyone on. Make sure that there's some sort of criteria. So I think that's what's going to happen with podcasters. We're going to have this sort of low-level podcasts that are just sort of there, and a very high-level podcasts that are really well thought through. And the high-level ones are the ones that are going to go through. We see this a lot with YouTube. I mean, how many YouTube videos have you seen that are very clearly made with AI and AI voices? And they're great for the masses, but I'm not going to get a lot out of them. And I think that there's going to be a group of serious people who are not going to take those seriously. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to take too much away from your business, because obviously, it's paid information. I want them to relay. But when you are working with like clients and people that are growing your podcast, do you guys focus on the production quality or the audio quality? Is that like a huge thing that you guys focus on, or is it more of like the structure, the guests, the content itself, rather than the visual and the audio appearance?
All of it. So if we're producing a podcast, I've got a video editor on staff, and who does they do titles, and they make it look nice. We use Riverside,
like multicam setups and stuff.
Not quite there yet. No, it's more just in front of your computer on Riverside. Riverside's got
Gotcha.
is a great platform just because it records to your computer, and so it has a much higher quality of production. You don't want to look like a slouch, but you also don't want to. You don't have to get like the world's greatest setup. I had a really close friend of mine who spent $40,000 on his podcast studio, and he looks like $1 million. Don't get me wrong. It's great. It was worth every penny. You don't need that though. Sometimes it's just getting it done. And so it's one of those, and when you're showing up to podcasts, or when you're showing up to podcasts as well, as long as you look like you've put some effort in. Like, I mean, honestly, this behind me is just it's a white painted wall. It's nothing grand. I've got a
Right.
couple of decent lights on it, and I don't have $1 billion setup. It's not really.
Yeah.
It's $500, and that's about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to look like you have put some effort into what you're doing. Right.
Absolutely.
So, as far as that level of quality, yeah, decent mic. I've got a Blue Yeti. I've used
Okay.
Blue mics for years, and I absolutely love them. $150 mic. It's not, not way out there.
Yeah.
So when you're first starting off, just, reasonable quality, and then you'll get better and better as you go. But as far as for clients, yeah, we help them through that process and what looks good, what doesn't, here's how to do this, here's the equipment that we recommend. So we take them through that process as well. And then, just to make it look like you are putting some effort into it.
Right. No, I love that. And I asked because I had a client in Michigan that was interested. It was they were like a financial advisory firm that wanted to start a podcast, and they
Yeah.
were so caught up on the visual appearance of it that they couldn't get over that hurdle,
Mhm.
like that the content was. So for anybody listening, I feel like this is really good because I'm maybe in the stages of a lot of people that could be listening to this type of content. And I feel like you freaking, dude,
Thank you, man.
knocked out the park, value packed information for everybody at different levels. Like a lot of people are just starting out. I feel like could definitely, use your services. And I'll definitely be on that call on Tuesday.
Absolutely, man. I'll be looking forward to having you. The more the merrier. Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Dude, Andrew, man, I appreciate it so much. We've been going for an hour and a half, and I don't want to take up too much of time. Again, like you said, I could do this all day too. I really could.
This lights me up, man. I love being. I've seen some shit. I've seen a lot, actually. I love being able to help people to spread that, because that's how we learn is experientially. That's how we learn is through stories. That's why I love doing podcasts, just because I want people to hear not the good or only what's gone well. I don't want to talk at somebody for a while. I want to say, hey, I screwed this up. Here's what's happened. Here's how you could not do that yourself. And we're wired to learn through stories. And so I always love, dude, I love this stuff. I can go for another hour if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I might my girlfriend is starting to pace back and forth on my side. So I'm like something must be going up. But
There you go.
no, man, I seriously did. I appreciate it so much. Like you literally opened my mind to different ways of doing things, and I'm definitely gonna take some notes from this podcast. So hopefully maybe in the future we can circle back around and
Sure, man.
have another chat.
I'm game if you are, man.
Hell yeah. Before we go off, I'm trying to like do this thing because I want to help the other party too. Is there anything that you want to like plug or I can let down in the show notes and or anything you want to like put out there to the people or where they can find you and come work with you?
Yeah, best thing to do, either the Tuesday webinars show up on those, or I can leave a booking link for you. So that way I can kind of say, here, go book a one-on-one with me. And then we'll get onto a call and I'll see how I can help, see if we can help you do something. I don't take on every client. It's sort of, if I can help you, that's great. If not, I'm not just going to take your money. So I like to kind of get a chat with the client first to see if there's a synergy there and to see if we can help them to build everything out. So yeah, I'm always willing to take a call with someone.
Yeah, that's great. And honestly, whoever's listening, you can just watch this episode 2 or 3 times, and I'm sure you can get something up and running. Because
I
the
hope so,
biggest
man.
thing I took away was like, just fucking start, just do it,
Yeah,
just
just do
start
it.
it. Anybody listening, bro, just do it.
Yeah. I had
Like,
somebody call me out on that once. Again, serial entrepreneur. And he's like, look, don't overthink it. Just put it out there. The market's going to tell you what to do. Don't overthink it. Yeah.
yeah, and I forgot who said it, but there was like a thing like looking at the haters. Like nobody doing better than you is gonna look down and judge you based off you trying to grow and get to where they're at. It's usually
The
the
only
people that are under you.
Yeah. The only way I will judge somebody is if you're not doing it.
Mm,
If you're trying your damnedest and you're screwing up every possible way and like 3 new ways that I didn't know you could screw something up, I'd be like, bro, if you need any hand, let me know. I'm here. I will never look down on anyone, to as an entrepreneur. It's like at the gym. I will never look down at the 600-pound person on the treadmill, no matter how bad it is, no matter how many different ways it's
they're
shaken. It
there.
doesn't. They're there. They're doing it, and there's a huge amount of respect involved just in that process alone. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I get this image out of my mind, but yeah.
yeah, that's huge, man. That's the mindset thing. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna
Sure, bud.
yeah, I'll see you Tuesday. I
Absolutely.
put my word on it.
Sure, man.
And I'm gonna keep up to date, follow with all your adventures, the authority forwards, the podcast, everything, man. Andrew, I really appreciate it.
No, this has been an absolute blast, dude. I have had so much fun, brother. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. We'll talk again soon.
I'll talk to you soon. Yep.
All right, brother.